Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Could you state your name for the record, sir?
Allan Haymes.
Mr. Haymes, again, I'm Ted Smith. I introduced myself to you before we began. I'm the attorney who represents Zylo Marshall and the current trustee, Sharon Johnson, for the Zylo Marshall Special Needs Trust. I would like you to describe you're retired currently, sir?
My what?
Are you retired currently?
Yes,
What did you do before you retired?
real estate.
And I also understand that at some point you became the trustee for Zylo's trust.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Objection calls for him to speculate. Facts foundation. Vague and ambiguous.
Sir, occasionally an attorney might state an objection. Once the objection is completed, you can go ahead and answer the question if you're able. How did it come about that you became trustee?
The trustee before me, if I recall correctly, were two lawyers. I don't know why, I don't remember why there was a change to me, but I can't explain it, I don't know. But there was a reason why there was a change, and I'm not sure, but I would think it's the lawyers that were handling it for Brian were not in sync with Brian. Brian wanted a change, and he came to me and asked me, and I agreed for a short time, and then I gave it up.
Did you work with an attorney to have the trustee shifted to you?
I think I did. That attorney.
What attorney, sir?
The one that was his, what do you call it, trustee, before me.
Do you remember that attorney's name?
No, I don't. Sorry. Let me just say this, I have a very poor memory. I have Parkinson's disease, and it's affected my memory. So I'll do the best I can.
That's all we ask, sir. How are you, does your health, would that affect your ability to fly out here to California to testify at trial?
Absolutely, but I couldn't go. I don't have, I can barely.
I'm sorry, hold on. I'm having trouble, Danny.
What happened?
It appears to me that getting feedback because the microphone is in front of the speaker usually causes feedback. That speaker is now behind him on the table. You're causing the feedback as will be controversial.
Is there something that can be done about that on their end?
We're getting feedback from your end. Can you adjust the speaker behind you?
You talking
Apparently
about?
either moving the speaker behind you or turning it down might affect our ability to hear. So we're having trouble hearing, and so if the videographer could either move the speaker down.
Is that any better?
Let's hear the witness.
Any better?
I think that's.
That sounds better,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks. Good. Yeah, so you're unable to fly?
No, I wouldn't fly. I'm in trouble to have to fly to go to doctors, but I haven't been in New York in almost 2 years.
Does the name Jeff Mendy ring any bells for you?
It doesn't ring a bell, but it sounds that I've heard it before.
Would that have been the attorney who acted as trustee just before you?
Objection calls for him to speculate.
Can I answer now?
Yes.
The only thing I remember about there were two lawyers. One lawyer was lame. He had something, either his legs or something he couldn't walk well. And he was not an old man, he was a younger man. But that's the only lawyer I remember. The other one, I don't remember the name. I know there was another lawyer.
Before you became trustee, did you have any understanding as to whether Allan Marshall wanted or did not want access to Brian Marshall's assets?
Objection calls for him to guess, speculate, lacks foundation, vague, ambiguous.
You can go ahead and answer, sir.
Tell me again.
Sure. Did Allan Marshall want to get his hands on Zylo's or on Brian's trust assets?
Objection, argumentative, vague, ambiguous, lacks foundation. Calls for him to speculate.
I had very little to do with that financial stuff until almost to the day of the last time I spoke with Brian.
Do you recall being involved in communications regarding Allan Marshall wanting to get his hands on the assets of Brian Marshall's trust?
Argumentative, leading the witness, lacks foundation, vague, ambiguous.
I can only tell you that sometime in the past 10 years, I think he went to jail. I don't know how long he went to jail. But my remembrance is that he was into drugs or something like that. As far as the monies are concerned, he was a very heavy money grubber guy. He wanted it all. But unfortunately, I don't have an opinion of him as of the last few years when he was in jail. I don't know what he did. I just heard he was in jail.
When you received the trust assets, did you understand that assets to include any property?
Objection calls for him to guess and speculate, calls for a legal conclusion.
I don't know. No, I don't know.
Did your daughter own part of a house in Guerneville?
Objection, vague, ambiguous, calls for a legal conclusion, lacks foundation.
I know she bought a house in Kearneyville. I was there once. Zylo was about 6 years old.
Where did she get the money to buy the house?
Objection, lacks foundation, vague, ambiguous, calls for him to guess and speculate, and hearsay.
My daughter got money when she was a young lady. She was run over by a car. And after some time, she was able to get I'm not sure if it was $10,000 or $15,000. And that was in her name, and it was from the accident.
Your daughter received money as a settlement or judgment resulting from an accident?
Yes,
Objection. Calls for to guess and speculate. Lacks foundation.
You understood there was about between $10,000 and $15,000?
yes, at that time,
Did you have anything to do with that money?
nothing. When you say have to do with that money, if you're talking about when she asked me to hold it and put it in some investment, I did that, but it didn't last more than 2 months. She wanted it back to buy a house again. So I wasn't sure whether she was buying a second house or whether she was buying the first house. And the Gurneyville house is the only thing that I remember of.
The strike portion is non-responsive.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Denise Haymes had you hold that money for her, yes?
Yes,
Objection. Leading. Ms. Haynes' testimony.
And-
Calls for to speculate. Hearsay.
And then she asked you to give it back?
Objection. Leading. Hearsay.
yes, she asked me to give it back.
Did she tell you why she wanted it back?
Yes, she told me she was going to buy a house.
When was this?
I don't remember, that's the part. I have no idea when it was. But it had to be, God, I'm guessing 25 years ago. 20.
Did she tell you what the house was that she wanted to buy?
How what?
Did she tell you where the house was that she intended to buy with the money she was getting back from you?
She said Santa something.
I'm sorry?
Sa- Gurneyville was Santa. I forget, I don't remember that one.
And where did she, to your knowledge, did she buy a house?
The only house I understand she bought when I came into the picture was Gurneyville.
And do you remember how long after she asked you for her money back that she bought that house in Gurneyville?
Within 6 months. I'm guessing 6 months sounds familiar to me.
You visited her at that house?
Once.
Let me guess and speculate. Lacks foundation.
Was there an answer?
She said once.
I don't know about that. But ask him again.
What was the question?
Sir, did you answer the question? You visited her at that house?
I visited her at that house once.
Thank you.
I want to take you to that period of time when there were lawsuits involving your daughter's estate and Zylo's guardianship and conservatorship. This was back in 1992 and 1993. Do you recall at some point in time, Zylo or Brian intended to offer Allan Marshall the entire house in Gurneyville?
Objection. Calls for guess and speculate. Lacks foundation.
I don't remember that at all. Don't forget I wasn't part of the family group. My daughter had gone off against my wishes, so we didn't have a close relationship. But she did come to me with questions about real estate.
Back in that period of time in the early 1990s, did you have any opinion about whether Brian Marshall was susceptible to others' influence regarding finances?
Objection, calls for an expert opinion, calls for a guess and speculate, lacks foundation.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Back in the early 90s, did you have any opinion about whether Zylo Marshall or Brian Marshall was susceptible to others' influence regarding money?
Same objections.
Yes. No question.
What was your opinion?
Same
My-
objections, lacks foundation. Hang on just a minute. Lacks foundation. Calls for to guess and speculate.
There was no question about that fact. He was young, uneducated, absolutely not.
No question about what, sir?
Objection, vague and ambiguous.
Did I answer that properly, or did I back it right?
Yes. No question about what, sir?
Objection.
No question that he needed help and sought it from various family parties. That's.
Various,
I'm sorry I made that back in. No, he definitely did have opinions. In fact, he even has a friend of mine who befriended him and has until this day in Florida. When he lived in Florida, he met him, and he somehow got friendly with my friend and called him when I didn't give him answers that he wanted.
Called him about what?
Called him about whether he should do this or that with money, buying stocks, that kind of thing.
Do you recall when you were trustee of the trust that there was any concern about a possible default in loan payments on the property in Guerneville?
I had some vague information, but at that point in time, my daughter was gone, and I really didn't pay too much attention to some of the things because Brian was loosely involved with things that he didn't understand. And when he didn't get information from me that I didn't think he needed, he went to my friend. My friend recommended certain things, and that was the relationship that had to do with whether Brian looked for help or not.
When you were trustee, did you understand that the trust included half of that property in Guerneville?
Objection, leading assumes facts not of evidence. Calls for a legal conclusion. Calls for hearsay testimony.
I was under the impression that my daughter owned the house, not the two of them. That was my understanding when she borrowed money and when she asked questions. That was my understanding. And it was her.
Did you have an understanding? Did you have an understanding when, after your daughter passed away, of what portion of that house went into her estate?
Same objections.
I didn't, or I should say, I didn't have enough information to know whether or not that occurred.
Do you remember when you were trustee that the trust included 1/2 of that house in Guerneville?
Objection, calls for legal conclusion, lacks foundation, calls for the guess and speculate, calls for hearsay testimony.
As I said, I was under the impression that my daughter owned the house, not both of them. That was what my understanding when my daughter spoke to me about real estate in that house. I said, "Are you putting up all the money?" She said, "Yes."
Okay.
Matter of fact,
Were you aware of well, let me back up. Did your daughter ever purchase a second house?
Objection, calls for the guess and speculate, lacks foundation.
I know she was trying to buy land that was adjoining her property. I don't know if she bought it or not. I don't remember a second house.
Did you talk to your daughter about real estate pretty frequently?
Not frequently, no. Only when there was something pending or something that she is looking at, which was not frequently.
Now, for the record, we've either lost or having difficulty with the connection.
I didn't hear that.
All right, I think you're back. We had a little glitch in the connection there.
Where are we?
Did your daughter, was your daughter trained as a real estate agent?
No.
Objection, calls for the guess and speculate, lacks foundation.
To your knowledge, did she take any real estate courses?
She said she was going to, or she did. I didn't get a follow-up on that. She wasn't in communication with me as often as I would have liked.
For the record, it looks like we've got a sporadic connection that's breaking in and out on occasions.
Did you have an understanding that the trust owned the entire house in Guerneville?
Yes, that's what I said. I was under the impression she owned the house.
And that house subsequently went into the trust for Brian's benefit?
Objection, calls for the guess and speculate, lacks foundation, calls for the testify on hearsay, calls for legal conclusion.
Sir, did you understand that that house then went into the trust for Brian's benefit?
Same objections.
I don't, because I wasn't the trustee in 1992. I think I lost the trusteeship or gave it up sometime immediately after my daughter died.
So during the time that you were trustee, there was no, to your knowledge, there was no property held in your name for the trust?
Yeah, right.
Do you recall Allan Marshall doing or saying anything? Well, let me back up. Since your daughter's death, have you spoken to Allan Marshall?
No. I don't know.
I understand that you have written him a letter. Have you received any letters from Allan Marshall since your daughter's death?
I think I remember a letter, but I don't have it. When I moved, I threw out a lot of papers that I thought were unnecessary to keep, but I don't remember anything like that.
Do you know a woman named Melanie Cook?
I don't know the person. The Melanie name sounds familiar. It might be the woman that Allan was working with or living with or sleeping with. It's something like that. I don't remember the rest.
Do you remember ever communicating with someone named Melanie who was associated with Allan?
I don't remember. I think it was, if I did, it was one time.
Do you remember talking to her or having correspondence with her?
No, there was no correspondence. It was purely a question maybe that I needed to have an answer for, that she did give me anyway. So I dropped it.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So I
understand.
dropped it.
Yeah, what did you say just before that, sir?
Excuse me? What?
Did you get it?
No, it's just very
Yeah.
soft-spoken.
If you can, keep your voice level up and
Okay.
describe
okay.
for me as best you can what the conversation was that you somewhat recall with Melanie.
I don't really remember what it was about. The only thing I can think of that it may have been involved with Brian. I'm wasting my breath. I don't remember.
Did you ever hear anything from anyone to suggest that Allan Marshall intended to hold and own that house in Guerneville as his alone?
I don't remember if there was such a thing, but there always was conversation about house and money whenever the few times I spoke with them. Bear in mind that I have not had a close relationship because of my daughter's interest in the wrong kind of people.
I can fix his email if he hangs up.
Did somebody say something?
No, I think that was something unrelated, from another room perhaps.
Oh,
So you have some documents there in front of you, and I wonder if you would, there's a stack of documents marked beginning Exhibit A, and a stack of documents marked beginning Exhibit 1. And if you look at the ones marked Exhibit A, maybe on your right there, I'd like you to go down to the one that's marked Exhibit S. It's near the very end.